So we are going to start now with Mangalacharan. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Dalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namasate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. All right, so we are going to start with our verse Janma Karma Chame Divyam. If you remember, the theme was to understand this verse Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evam Yoveti Tatvata Tyaktva Deham Punarjanma Neti Mameti. So Arjuna, and this verse talks about how by understanding the birth and activities of the Lord in Tattva, that is in detail, how one will not take birth again in this world. This is what Krishna promises, but he will go back to Sri Krishna. So now the Lord is saying that once you come to me, you will be free from birth and death, which means you achieve deathlessness. And what kind of a person attains deathlessness? That is described in Bhagavad Gita 2.15. So in that verse, we heard the example of Dhruva Maharaj, how Dhruva Maharaj attained deathlessness. And then the question arises that if one can attain deathlessness, then why are we so scared? Do we even die? For this, we did the verse 2.20. Na jayate mriyate va kadacham Nayam bhutva bhavita vanabhuya ajo nityam shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire, which means that a soul does not die. It's just the change of the body. And for this, we took the story of the child of Maharaj Chitraketu. Now, if we do not die, so basically, what kind of people are not scared? For that, we did the verse 2.13. Dehino asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantaraha prapti dhiras tatra namoyati. Which talk, and for this we did the example from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the story of Bharat Maharaj, how he changed 3 bodies from Bharat Maharaj to deer to Jada Bharat, and then he achieved the success and the perfection of life, that is going back to Godhead. So now the question arises that if the soul, it is the soul that goes to different bodies and a sober person is not disturbed by this change, then why is that a sober person is not disturbed? Because Sri Krishna says in verse number Bhagavad Gita 15.7, Mam evamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manaha shashtani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. So for this, we did the story of Duryodhan, that how being part and parcels of the Lord. That is what the Lord is saying, that all the living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. But due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. So how mind plays a major role, that we did from the story of Duryodhan. How Duryodhan was disturbed by his own mind. Even though he was the son of a prince, there was no need for, he was the son of a king, he was a prince. So there was no need for him to worry about anything but his mind, how the vices, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Mad, Matsarya in him took over his intelligence, and then he tried to harm the Pandavas in every possible way. Now, today, what we are going to understand is, so now, just as we know that a healthy person, a wealthy person, there's a son of a wealthy person, and if he's separated from his father and he is struggling to work very hard to earn his livelihood, the father is not going to be happy. The father is going to be really disturbed. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he also sees us, the conditioned souls, who originally, we belong to him. So, and what is the nature of the Lord? The Lord's nature is that he's Sachidanand, that we see in from the verse number 1 of Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parma Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So Krishna, who is known as Govinda, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has an eternal blissful body and he is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. Okay, so we understood how the Supreme Personality, we know that by this verse, we know that how the Lord is Sachidanand and we being his part and parcels are also Sachidanand. Okay, so what is it? Now, because we are Sachidanand, so the Lord, we look for what? We look for happiness. Why? Because Lord is Sachidanand and we are his part and parcels. What does Sat, Chit and Anand mean? Means Sat means he's eternal, Chit means he's knowledgeable, and Anand means bliss. So because we are minute part and particles of the Lord, we are also looking for Sat, Chit, and Anand. We are looking for happiness everywhere. But does this material world allow us to be happy? No, because this material world, the basic nature of this material world is, it is dukhalya shashvatam. It is a place of misery and it is temporary. So we are trying to look for happiness in the wrong place, right? Now, so this is the basic difference between the Lord and the Jiva, that Lord is the source of everything, Sarva Karana Karanam, as we did in the first verse of Brahma Samhita. So he is the cause of everything, but we being his part and parcels are not the cause of everything. We think that we are cause of some things, but not of everything. So in Brahma Samhita also it is described that, the verse Advaitam Achitam Anadim Anantarupam Madhyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakta Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure, unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. So to know about the beauty of such an Advaita, Achyutam, Anadi, Anant, Adyam Purush, who is Navayovanam, who is Durlabh, even in Vedas, and is Adurlabh for Atma Bhakta, Jnani, won't be able to, even a Jnani won't be able to know Lord as he will be understood by a Bhakta. It is only by devotion. Now the question arises, so how do we know that Krishna is our eternal? How do we know Krishna is the eternal Father? Okay, that we have to understand by the presence of Paramatma within. The Lord is present as Paramatma in our hearts. And all day we have to understand by the presence of Paramatma within our heart. And then only will we be able to relate everything with the Lord. as you know, Bhagavad Gita says in the verse 15.15, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannavishto matah smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedes cha sarver aham eva vedo vedanta krit vedadeva chaham. So he says that I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. I am the compiler of the Vedas, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Okay. Now, this is actually the mercy of the Lord that we are able to remember and forget things. Why is it so? Because he is our well-wisher. He is our desire-fulfilling tree. If we want to remember Krishna, he will make the arrangements that we don't forget him. And if we want to forget him, he will make sure that we don't remember him. How do we understand this? And if we carry the Lord in our heart, with great zeal, then we will be prepared to do any kind of sacrifice for the pleasure of the Lord. So to know Krishna is the eternal Father, we need to have the element faith. Now, why is it a blessing? How Krishna gives us the remembrance and forgetfulness? We understand this from the story of Gajendra. Who was Gajendra? You've heard the story of Gajendra Moksha, the deliverance of Gajendra the elephant. So it so happened that long ago, there was a celestial planet in the universe. On a celestial planet in the universe, there was a mountain by the name of Trikuta. Now, in the valleys surrounding this mountain, there were many lakes and streams whose water was clear as crystal, and whose banks and beaches were covered not with sand, but with trillions of tiny jewels. Now imagine, when you see the sand particles in the sun, they shine, they look very pretty, but they are actually sand. Here, they were not sand particles, they were actually trillions of tiny jewels. Now, sometimes very nice, sometimes they were all demigods and demigoddesses who used to take bath in those waters, and there was a pleasing fragrance to the water and the breeze that would be because of them taking bath. Now, one valley in this Trikuta mountain was a garden called, in one of the valleys was a garden called Atumat. Now, there were many tropical fruits, like, there is mango is a seasonal fruit basically, but there, mangoes, coconuts, dates, pomegranates, and bananas, they all grew luxuriantly all the year round. Now, there was also a lake which was filled with golden lotuses and other rare flowers. So there were bumblebees who would drink the nectar of the flowers, and they would hum, the birds would chirp, and graceful swans will glide across the lake's surface. Now, in that mountain, and there was a forest, deep in that forest, there lived Gajendra. Who was Gajendra? Gajendra was an elephant, and he was actually the king of the elephants. So, on one occasion, it so happened one day, Gajendra and his male and female companions, all his friends and family, they wandered around the lake, and they were huge. So wherever they would walk, they would basically overrun all sorts of plants, creepers, thickets, and trees, everything. And so Gajendra, when he would walk, the whole mountain would tremble. So as soon as Gajendra's scent, his fragrance, his aroma from his body would reach the rival elephants and other ferocious animals like lions and rhinoceroses, they would flee in fear. So, and the smaller and less dangerous animals like porcupines, rabbits, foxes, and wolves, they would remain in the forest. They won't even come out. And out of respect, that was because they were very respectful of Gajendra. Gajendra, though he was very, very powerful, but he was not cruel. He was not cruel. So the weight of Gajendra's body made the whole Trikuta mountain tremble. Now, as Gajendra, he walked, he perspired. His mouth was dripping as he was intoxicated. And from a distance, he smelled the lotus flowers' sweet pollen. Now he led his herd to the lake, and where they could satisfy their thirst. In a moment, the king of the elephant, he plunged in the waters of the lake and bathed and drank the cold, clear nectarian water. Feeling utterly satisfied and refreshed, he invited his wives and children also to take bath and drink the water from the lake. So it was he was a heavy body, so it was hard for him to, move his trunk, fill it up with water and sprinkle it on his family members. But with a lot of endeavor he was doing, and they were having a lot of fun there. Suddenly it so happened that a huge crocodile, a really big crocodile, he attacked the mighty leg of the elephant, Gajendra. Otherwise, uncommonly strong. He was way too strong. But even though he tried so hard, he just could not get his leg. Yes.
What's Gajendra again?
The elephant, the king of the elephants. Now this elephant, he was very, very strong. Even as we just read, the lions and all the ferocious animals were also scared of him. But he just could not take his leg out of the grip of this crocodile. Seeing his condition like this, his wives, they began to cry. And the other elephants, how you make a chain, one person holds the other, and then you try the tug of war. If you've seen, then you try to pull. They all tried every possible thing to get this elephant, his leg from the mouth of the crocodile, but all. Now the question may arise, why so? The elephant is much stronger than the crocodile. The reason being, elephant is not an animal of water and crocodile is. So when you're in your own territory, you're more powerful. So the crocodile was much powerful at that point of time than the elephant, because elephant normally is on the land. He was just having fun and quenching his thirst. For some time he went into the lake, but that is not his area. He is not an animal, a creature of sea, of water. So he lost his powers. But on the other hand, the crocodile, being the sea animal, being the animal of the water, he did not lose. So for so many days this continued, and because of this particular reason, the crocodile kept gaining strength and the elephant kept losing strength. So this so-called tug of war went on for 1,000 years. Now eventually, because he is not an animal of the water, the elephant became very weak. Now at this time, crocodile, because he was the animal of water, increased his enthusiasm, physical strength, and sensory power. So when Gajendra saw that he could not save himself, he became terrified of being killed. Yes, Aisha, tell me.
So you said that the tug of war thing happened for over 10,000 years. So I was wondering if it was material years or if it was the years that Krishna had.
So it actually happened for 1,000 years, and it was the material year.
Okay.
Because they were here on this planet. in the Trikuta mountain. Now it so happened the elephant became very, very weak. Okay. So other male elephants, his friends, his families, he was thinking. Now the elephant started thinking now that he was, this is how it is. When you lose your powers, that's when you actually think of the Lord. So he started thinking that my family cannot help me, my friends cannot help me, my wives cannot help me, then who is it that can help me? And he thought of the providence, and he started contemplating on this very thought that time, if time gets a grip on you, then, which is for everybody, the serpent of eternal time endlessly chases everyone. So he was thinking that if one who fears this serpent seeks the shelter of the Supreme Lord, so he was trying to understand who should he take shelter of when he's stuck like this. So he understood that it is only the Supreme Personality of Godhead who can give him protection, because even death runs away in the fear of the Lord. So he started praying, I surrender unto you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. He fixed his mind on a prayer which he had learned in his previous life. Now you see, this is where the remembrance comes. And he chanted it with all his heart. So the Supreme Lord, he is the platform on which everything rests and the ingredient from which everything is produced. So Gajendra was praying, the Lord is the person who has created this cosmic manifestation. By expanding his energy, he keeps it sometimes visible and sometimes invisible. The identity of an actor on stage is covered by attractive costuming and dancing and cannot be understood by his audience. Similarly, the activities and features of the supreme actor cannot be understood even by the demigods and great sages, and certainly not by those men who are unintelligent like animals. But may that Supreme Personality of Godhead give protection to an animal like me. This is all the prayers of Gajendra. That's what he is praying for. Then Gajendra, he did not want simply to be saved in his present condition, from his present condition. Now that he had understood that what was going on, he basically wanted protection eternally. And how would he get that? So he started praying that after I am rescued from the attack of crocodile, I do not wish to live in this material world anymore. What is the use of living in this elephant's body covered by ignorance? Now, fully desiring release from material life, I offer my respectful obeisances unto that Supreme Person who is the creator of the universe. So, from Bhagavad Gita, we also learn that all living beings, that's what we are doing, they are actually part and parcels of the Supreme God. They are like the spiritual sparks emanating from the fire of the absolute truth. So, some souls, they desire to forget their eternal connection with the Supreme Lord, and as a result, they take birth in the material world, in the bodies of demigods, humans, animals, birds, plants, insects, depending on their karma. Now, these bodies, subject to birth, death, old age, and disease, they cover the eternal soul. So, ignorant of the real identity, the soul remains in the material world lifetime after lifetime. Forgetful of his spiritual selfhood, he remains attracted to material life, to house, country, society, family, bank balance, and so on. Continually he thinks, I am this body, and everything related to this body is mine. This conception of life is extremely difficult to surmount unless, like Gajendra, the soul realizes, I am a spirit soul, and surrenders to the Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At that moment, he regains his spiritual enlightenment. Now, being in the body of an elephant, he could remember these prayers from his past life, and he started reciting these prayers in glorification of the Lord. That is when he got the Lord's attention. So now, seeing this awkward position of Gajendra, the Supreme Lord, in his four-armed form as Vishnu, he flew towards the mountain lake on the back of his great winged carrier Garuda. Gajendra, he was still caught in the jaws of the crocodile and was feeling acute pain. But he was relieved to see the Lord wielding his disc and other weapons and coming in the sky to rescue him. Now imagine, he was in such a condition, but when he saw the Lord, that the Lord was coming to rescue him, what did he do? He was in extreme pain. It had been 1,000 years. The crocodile wasn't letting him go. He was citing prayers. He was reciting the prayers. He was glorifying the Lord. And when he actually saw the Lord coming, he offered a lotus, which was grown in that, it was growing in that lake where he was with the crocodile. And with great difficulty, he plucked that lotus with his trunk and offered it to the Lord, who he saw up in the sky being carried on Garuda, coming for his rescue. Yes, Manahar.
So, even the crocodile, even when you're in your territory, I think you can still get tired. So, didn't the crocodile get tired of keeping his mouth like that for 1,000 years?
No, so that is where we are going to come now. Who were they in their past life?
Using the same meeting?
No, Parthsarthi.
We are Parthsarthi. Okay.
So, so that is what we are coming to now, that how is it that both of them, so this all has to do with their past birth. Okay, so if you remember, we started with the verse where Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Matah Smritir Jnanam Apohanam Cha. So from me comes remembrance and forgetfulness. So that is the whole point that we are doing, that Gajendra, how he remembered the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the prayers that he learned in his previous birth, and he was able to offer those prayers. Now, as a crocodile, because he was playing the role of a creature, animal, a creature of the water, he in his territory was not at all weak or getting tired. But Gajendra, on the other hand, being the animal of land in somebody else's territory, was losing his strength day by day. Here comes that how Krishna helps you by giving this remembrance and forgetfulness. Now, when he saw the Lord coming with his tired and fatigued body, he somehow plucked the lotus which was being grown in the lake there itself, and he offered it. So it's, just imagine, he remembered all these things, that you not only glorify the Lord with your words, but with your actions also. And with as much strength he had, he offered that lotus to the Supreme Lord. You have something to say, Manahar? Your hand is raised.
I think I just forgot to lower it.
Okay, no problem. Yes, Nehal.
Is there a way to tell is there a way to tell on what prayers did Gajendra recite to Lord Krishna?
Oh, there's a whole number of verses where it is known by Gajendra Stuti. If you want, I will send it on the group.
Okay.
Okay. I'll send it after the class. Okay. Yes, Aisha.
For Nehal's question, my mom told me that there's an entire song. I think it's called Hey Govinda, Hey Gopal. It's about the elephant and the crocodile, basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so all these are included in the Gajendra Stuti, and I'll send the link to it after we're done. All right. So now, when Gajendra saw the Lord coming, and he was so touched, he was so moved that he plucked the lotus flower, he offered it to the Lord. And how did he offer it? Just, he held it in his trunk and he lifted his trunk up high and he prayed, "Oh my Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you." The Lord, he got down from Garuda's back and he pulled Gajendra and the crocodile both out of the water. Then he released his disc and he cut the crocodile's head from his body. That is with the Sudarshan chakra. So all the demigods and sages who had gathered there, they praised this act of the Lord and showered flowers upon the Lord and Gajendra. Now, who was this crocodile? As soon as the crocodile's head was cut by the Sudarshan chakra, the soul came out. The soul, and who was he? Basically, in the previous birth, both Gajendra and Crocodile, they both were kings in the previous birth. The crocodile was a king by the name Huhu, and he was from a Gandharva planet. Okay. Once it so happened that he was playing in the water.
What's a Gandharva planet?
It's one of the higher planets where all the singers of the heavenly planets reside. A singer in the heavenly planet is called Gandharva. And there's a separate planet where all these beautiful singers who sing the songs of the Lord reside there.
Okay.
Okay. Now, so once it so happened that this particular king, Gandharva, he was a king of the Gandharva planet. So this king, he was playing in the waters there with his friends, and there he somehow pulled the leg of a sage by the name of Devala. Now this Devala Rishi, he became very furious and he cursed King Huhu to become a crocodile. That you're so fond of being inside the water and you want to play pranks while being inside the water, may you become a crocodile, because he caught hold of the leg of the sage Devala, and this is how he was cursed to become a crocodile. Now obviously he was not happy, so he sought forgiveness from the sage. So sages are full of compassion, so he was compassion, out of his compassion, he gave him the benediction that he would be free at the very moment when the Supreme Lord will deliver Gajendra. So who knew that they all had both of them had the remembrance from their past life. Who knew who Gajendra was, and as crocodile, he knew that now is the time. Now that when Gajendra entered the lake there, he was very, very pleased to see Gajendra. He purposely caught hold of the leg of Gajendra because he knew that that was the only way he would be delivered. So as soon as the Lord, he cut off the crocodile's head, the soul left that body and regained the beautiful form of the demigod King Hu. So that was his original, his body from the previous birth was that of King Hu. So that's what he gained again, because he had normally, once the Lord delivers you, you go back to Godhead. But right now, King Hu had that many number of years to live as King Hu on the Gandharva planet, which was interrupted by this mischievous act of his when he caught hold of the leg of the sage Devala. So that is why when he was, his head was cut by the Lord, he took the body of King Hu again, the king of Gandharva planet. And then he offered his prayers to the Lord. and then he returned to his Gandharva planet. Now coming to Gajendra. Who was Gajendra in his previous birth? He was also a king by the name of Indradyumna, and he was a great devotee of Lord Krishna, and the king, he was the king of a South Indian region by the name called Pandya. Yes, Anirudh, you have something to say? Okay. So when Indradyumna Maharaj, when he retired from his kingdom and family life, where did he go? He went to Malaya Hills, and where he lived in a small cottage, an ashram, and he practiced his spiritual disciplines there. Now, he let his hair grow in matted locks, and he engaged in continual austerities. It so happened one time that he was so absorbed in his vow of silence. So he was trying to practice spirituality through the means of yogic system. Okay. So he took the vow of remaining silent, vow of silence, Maun Dharan, that is called. So he became fully absorbed in the ecstasy of love of Godhead. Now it so happened that at that particular time and place, arrived a sage by the name of Agastya. So Agastya Rishi arrived along with his disciples. But this king Indradyumna, he was so absorbed in his meditation, he did not even notice that the sage is there. What to speak of offering him a proper reception? He was very, very upset now, Agastya Muni, and so he cursed the king. What did he say? That this king Indradyumna is not at all gentle, said Agastya. Being low and uneducated, he has insulted me. May he therefore enter the region of darkness and receive the dull, dumb body of an elephant. Because Indradyumna was a devotee of the Lord, he humbly accepted the sage's curse as the desire of the Lord. He lost his royal position and got the body of an elephant. But he retained his devotional mentality. So this is the beauty. The Lord helped him remember his devotion from the past birth. Now, because he remembered how to offer prayers to the Lord, he received spiritual liberation. Now you see, he received spiritual liberation because he was a devotee of the Lord in his previous birth. And that's how he received the spiritual liberation versus the crocodile. Even though he remembered that he was King Huhu, but because he was a Gandharva, he again got the body of the King Huhu, who had to finish his business in that body for as many number of years that were left. And only then after would he get liberation. The spiritual liberation was received by Gajendra. In fact, after the Lord saved his dear devotee from the crocodile's jaws, he promised that anyone who offers me the prayers you have offered me and who meditates upon my form, this lake, this mountain, the gardens, the celestial trees, and my unlimited all auspicious activities, he will at last receive eternal residence in the spiritual world. So we have seen that at the time of death, everything is taken away from us. No one can say that he is unafraid of death. Now, we may ask, doesn't Krishna's devotee also die? So the answer to that is, devotee still has to give up his material body, but the present body is his last. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that after a devotee gives up his present body, he does not accept another. He returns home back to Godhead. This is what we saw here, that Gajendra, being the devotee of the Lord, he remembered the prayers and he offered those prayers to the Lord. And that's how he got his spiritual salvation, versus King Huhu, who's still got the body of a Gandharva king to finish up his business in that body. Okay, so is this not a blessing that Krishna is the one who, from Krishna comes remembrance and forgetfulness? He is the one who gives us remembrance. He is the one who gives us forgetfulness. At times we are not happy with this, but if you think in a bigger picture, this is a blessing from the Supreme Lord. Okay, anybody has any questions, any comments? Yes, Anil, do you have any question?
So, how did the crocodile? How did the person became changed into a crocodile? Was he like doing something really bad like somehow?
Yeah, so this king he pulled the leg of Devala Rishi underneath the water, and Devala Rishi got really upset with him and cursed him to become a crocodile in his next birth.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope he learns his lesson.
Yeah, hopefully. Yes, Mihika.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hi.
Mataji, how much I heard, I like the story and like the details of how Gajendra was caught. So Mataji, my question is that like, why did the crocodile, who was King Huhu, only grab onto Gajendra's leg? Why not some other elephant's leg?
Because he was aware of it. He knew that the king of elephants, see, he knew from super soul is present in everyone's heart. Moreover, he was cursed, and when he sought forgiveness from Devala Rishi told him that you will be delivered only when the Lord delivers Gajendra. And he knew who Gajendra was. Everybody on that mountain knew. Remember, we were just reading this, that when Gajendra would come outside the deep, from deep within the forest, all the animals would run away out of fear of him. So everybody there knew who Gajendra was.
Okay, Mataji.
Okay. Yes, Manahar.
So the planet where Gajendra was it just Earth or was it a heavenly planet?
It was a celestial planet, but again, all these planets are a part of material world, not Earth, but a material. There are many planets. You know that, right? Different planetary regions. So one of them.
Okay.
But in the material realm, not in the spiritual realm. Okay. Anybody has anything else? Mehika, you have something else to say?
No, Mataji.
Okay. All right. So then we'll end here and we will continue in the next class, Krishna willing, where we are going to understand. So today we understood how getting forgetfulness and remembrance from the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a blessing. Now we are going to, in the next verse, we will understand how Krishna, why Krishna basically comes, okay? Why he comes to this material world, okay? That will be done in Bhagavad Gita verse 4.7. All right, so we'll end here and we will see you next week, same time. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhyascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.